do come down here for our shows. So please send in your list of what you're looking for, because some of us have already exhausted our members for the parts that we're looking for. So let's reach out to other clubs and see if they have that needed part.
So how would we do this?
Well, you could contact any board member. You could send an email to the club email. You can send one, because all of our contact information is in the call letter.
Get a hold of the editor.
Oh, yes, the editor. By the way, Don was not able to make it here today. But yes, email, club, board member, bring it up here. We'll make a list and we'll share it with the other clubs. Any old business? Okay. New business? Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, Dave.
So we have a white elephant gift up here exchange. If you brought a gift and you didn't get a ticket, be sure to come in here and I'll get you a ticket so that we can pull them out and then choose a turn.
Right. It's no fair for you to come and dump, have a present, not take something back.
Exactly.
Remind people to turn in their surveys.
Oh, yes. We have surveys back there. So remember, this is your guys' club, and we're just facilitators to help get what you want out of this club. So the survey was sent out via email in the call letter, plus we have hard copies back there. So please take some time, fill out a survey, and return it back to us. Yes, Senator.
I was asked to check on a place for a sale possibly, the Grange.
Oh, yes, we'll have an update from Robbie here in a minute when it gets down to
Do you
his
want to hear
item.
what I found out or wait?
Where's Robbie? Do you want to wait? Or do you want to, we can wait. Can we wait, Sam? Thank you. All right, for the new business, we do have a connection with the repair fair, so whenever they get in an old electronic item that needs repairing, they're going to contact our club, and then we'll go in and fix this item. Now, like I say, this is important for you guys, you repair people, to please give us business cards, because more than likely, some of these radios will not be able to be fixed through our clinic. And so we're gonna give them your information so they can contact you directly and have their radio or electronic item fixed, but we need your business cards. Because if you notice, in the newsletter, we used to have a list of repair people, but that's not there anymore, so we need your business cards. So please, get those to us.
December call letter. Does anybody have any additions or corrections? And if not, we'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes. Yes, George?
I would like to thank the person that gave me a new name.
Did I do that in the minutes?
No, it was in the call letter, not identified.
Well, let's stick to the, let's stick to the minutes right now. How about a motion to approve the minutes as published in the December call letter? Okay, Larry's gonna move. Second? Second, okay. Any objections? Okay, without objections, the minutes are approved and the motion carries, or the motion carries and the minutes are approved. Thank you.
Ed, do you have any treasury report?
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
Stop listening.
I'll go with that.
Okay, Mark Moore's not here, librarian, do we need any, library, oh, he's not here, okay. Yes, that's right, forgot. Next up is the radio sale coordinator. Robbie, would you like to, give us an update?
Let's watch the tripod there, Robbie.
Well, so far, the update, what I come across is Aurora Place. I went over and talked to the guy over there. And I think Aurora is gonna be one of our best places to go. Because it's the cheapest place, it's $350 for the day. And $100 for down payment for holding the building. And they have 45 tables that we do not have to rent. And there's some more parking now. And it's got both ramps there for handicapped people to go from the first floor to the second floor. So I think the Aurora is gonna be a pretty good outfit. So it's up to you to, decide what you wanna go there or pick a different place. Yeah.
So Robbie, just to let everybody know, this is the same place where we were about 5 years ago?
Yeah, this is a VFW hall.
American Legion Hall. Okay,
Yeah.
good location.
So we want to hear from Santa about,
Yeah. Santa can
Yep.
give his little speech too.
Robbie,
Yeah.
you might tell them about the extended parking that's available, is that right?
Yeah, that little parking spot on the left of the building is an empty lot now, so you can park there in the meantime.
Yeah, there was a burned up building there, I think, before.
Yeah,
Foundation or what?
I was told to, or asked to check on the Grange on Shoals Ferry Road, Kenton Grange. I only live about 3 miles from it, but anyway, they are already pretty much booked on weekends. I didn't get a date on what we were going to do it, what date we were going to do it for, so anyway, but most of the weekends are already taken. They charge, I think it was $500, I'm sorry, $300 and a $500 deposit in case, they have to clean up anything. The other place, I'm playing Santa down at Oaks Park, and I kind of like that place down there. But, the other thing the Grange wanted was, she said it's probably covered by your homeowner's insurance, but they want a certificate of $1 million of insurance. In case anything goes wrong. And you get your deposit back if they don't have to clean it up or anything. Oaks Park is $1,300 for nonprofits, and they want a deposit, I think, of $300, and they're booked all through next year already. So if you want to do something like that, we're going to have to get, I said, well, when can we reserve it? She said, well, right now. So if you want to go for 2020, you should probably reserve it now. Anyway, I think maybe we're going to go with Aurora anyway. So anyway, that's it from Santa.
Thank you, Santa.
yes, David.
So I'd like to make a motion that we go back to Aurora for our next swap meet.
Second motion. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of having the spring sale in Aurora, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Okay, Robbie, motion is carried. So,
And I have another motion.
yes,
I make a motion that for $100, we reserve it for the October show also in Aurora.
second motion. Okay, another motion on the floor. Should we reserve Aurora for the fall sale as well? All in favor? All opposed? We can get our money back, right, if it turns out to be a disaster?
Yeah, it will.
Okay, all right, good. All right, going on for our Christmas program here, I was told that perhaps George would like to come up and give a little history of the first Christmas party.
Oh my.
Is that something? We don't have to, I was just told that you have some very interesting information.
Can you take the mic to him?
Yes, we can do that.
I will, do that. Can I do it from here? Can everybody hear me? I figured you could. Years ago, I was a new member, Green, and we were meeting in the Buena Vista out on the park. Rat infested, full of mice, never got cleaned up. The club even provided new curtains for it, which was really a surprise. But I asked the club members, I said, what do you do at Christmas time? I said, well, a bunch of us go out to dinner. I said, how many? He said, well, about 5 or 7. I said, what about the rest of the people? He said, they're welcome to come because they're new. I said, well, we're going to stop that. So I said, we're going to have everybody bring a dish. And we're going to decorate this. I got Nat Neal to play his instrument, and he moved in with that. Everybody came, and we had a good time. And that was the first time, and we've had one of these ever since.
George,
Yes.
where was that party? Where did that happen again? At the Buena Vista Clubhouse? You had the party?
Oh, yeah, we did a couple of years.
Okay.
No, we did.
It was
we
a
did
small
it
party.
in Buena Vista, and to Buena Vista's managers, somebody had used the club previous to us, or after us, I guess, and left it a mess. And they decided then they weren't going to let the members that have a key then to the clubhouse, that you had to pick it up that morning. Well, because we went in the night before and all that type of. So that didn't work out, and I got mad at the woman, and I said, fine, we're gonna find someplace else to meet. And we ended up going to the Salvation Army. That wasn't much cleaner.
So what year was the first year you had?
Let's see. I gotta think how old I was. No, I frankly don't know what the year was. But it had to be in 70.
Had to be early 70s.
Very early 70s.
It couldn't be the early 70s because we only formed in 75.
Well, then it was 76 or 78 or something. Whatever.
Did you bring your meatballs to the first one?
No. So aren't you lucky?
Sure.
Okay.
I would like to say something to George's wife.
You know who the ball and chain is.
You know who the boss is.
I know the boss is.
George thoroughly enjoyed doing it, you know, and he got all this stuff. You know, we had to decorate, we had greenery here, and at home we did all kind of things, and he rolled up all these little things, and I thought, for crying out loud, what's going on? A bunch of men with their radios, you know, but he enjoyed it so much, and he still does. But, I'll tell you one thing, really appreciate all this stuff that the girls did here today. This is beautiful. Anytime at one time, it is a lot of effort, a lot of work. So I think whoever does all this, I will say thank you for everybody. So thank you.
Thank For our monthly feature in January, we have code speakers from the 1920s. And I hear that people are already talking about them, so that should be very interesting. The holdover was midget radios, or real small tube radios. So when we vote in January, that'll be on the nominations too.
Thanks. I'd like to turn this over now to Dave for the Christmas party. Dave, would you like to introduce?
I just wanted to discuss what the Christmas party was. I volunteered for it last month to lead this up, but we've had a great team to work on this with Brian and, it's okay.
Oh, you got it, it's working, okay.
It's working. Mike and his wife, and I'm sorry, I don't remember. Janet, and Brian and his wife, Kathleen, or Candy, is that my wife? And I know I'm forgetting people. Pat, Rob, that's right, Pat was here at 7 this morning, and Robin was over here. And I'll be on mine. I can't remember anything. Yeah. But then we have Lyles who brought the ham, and George brought his meatballs. It's just been really a wonderful time by all. And I'm sorry if I forgot somebody. I got bad memory. Franklin, that's right. Franklin came in early too. That's right. So, yeah. So it's been really a fun time doing this. I'm looking forward to helping out the club throughout the year. We do have a once again, we do have the white elephant gift exchange. I think we'll do later on. And if you put something over there, come to me, because you have to get these little tickets to get your chance to pull up the white elephant. And there is some mighty interesting things on that table. So it should be a lot of fun. Is there anything else, Pat? Door prizes. Oh, door prizes. We got the wonderful door prizes. We have a Cruiser Deluxe, which is outstanding. We have this beautiful radio here. I don't know what that is. Is that a Bruno? Bruno. It's a beautiful
Bruno
radio. And then we also have the poinsettias. So that's part of this little ticket.
Poinsettias with the boxes.
With the poinsettias with the boxes. And that's part of the little ticket that you have on your napkins.
and the candles.
That, and then there'll be a draw for that. And then everybody gets their complimentary bag with the Northwest Pinches Radio Society on it. So as a gift to take home. So this will be a lot of fun. Yeah. But Dick is going to give us entertainment now, so it should be a lot of fun with Brian music. It's wonderful time.
All right.
That was going to be after lunch, but we can do it now.
Should we go ahead and
If we do hand puppets, you know, but it's put a sock over their hand and stand up in front of the projector. No, let's do a little bit now, and let's remember Christmas for what it is. In the radio world, we have a lot to be thankful for at Christmas. Christmas and radio started putting their hands together back in 1918, and as I figure it out, I don't know how many of you can tell me why they banned AM radio transmission during World War I. Spies, indeed. Most of the radio stations on the East Coast were owned by Marconi or Telefunken. Now, if you put the Germans and the Italians together, it just wasn't a good get together. In fact, it confused the issue so much so that they heard the Telefunken station telling submarines when the Lusitania was going to sail. At that point in time, we kind of thought that there was a conflict of interests. And we indeed banned all AM radio broadcasts during World War I. And if we, like I say, this wasn't what I was prepared to start with, but let me push a button here. We can be trained. Yeah, in fact, the World War I bit should come in about here. And I apologize for those of you, I was going to tell you that you could turn your chairs around, but I'm not sure whether you really can. So the chiropractic bill is send it to the club. It's fine. They'll take care of it. It's,
Should we have people that start lining up and eat flat meat? Are they ready for us? Are you guys ready for us?
well, do you want breakfast or do you want lunch? Brunch. Sure, you can go ahead, Pat, if you want to, if we want to.
Are they ready?
Are the ladies in the food service ready to serve food? Not yet. Okay. Well, let's look a little bit at that World War I. You might recognize this boat. It has 4 funnels and it has a very short name. It is the Titanic. And of course we know that the Titanic sunk. And the belief was that the Titanic wouldn't have lost so many people if people had been there to hear its distress calls. Well, the distress calls are kind of interesting because there was no one else to hear them anyway. Radio operators on all the boats, all the ships at sea, at dusk, turned off their key because there was so much garbage, so much confusion in dark that it wasn't a point to have to try to communicate. So when the operator rushed to the radio room to send out his signal, well, the interesting thing was the signal went out to nobody. But think of how the world turns. It wasn't dusk in New York yet. And the signal reached New York. In fact, there was a 17-year-old sitting on the 30th floor of the Wanamaker building. I think it was on the 18th floor or something, but of the Wanamaker building. And he was sending orders to the West Coast because they hadn't gotten dark yet either. And he heard this, and he cleared his area of the air and just copied down these messages coming in. And when he turned around and started sending out the distress signals for the Titanic, of course, we were omnidirectional at that time. No directional anything. So it went back out to sea. And that's how the Carpathia and several of the other boats heard about it. They didn't hear the first broadcast from the Titanic because they were asleep. But they heard the broadcast. And who was that guy in the Wanamaker building? Sarnoff. Edison might have improved upon it. That's Edison's fault. But the thing that happened at that particular time, and we'll do some more of this history after we get a chance to eat, but the thing that happened at that particular time is that the government moved. Now this was probably a miracle in itself. But by May of 1912, we already had a Radio Act. That was only like 61 days after the sinking of the Titanic. And the things that the Radio Act did was it eliminated all private, non-commercial stations. It was trying to exclude amateur radio, because amateur radio is what was on the air all that time when, indeed, Sarnoff was trying to get the message out. And the hams, if you'll pardon the expression, were there doing other things. So as we got the Radio Act, it eliminated experimental stations, but what they called themselves, or they eliminated amateur stations, but what they called themselves now was experimental stations. And the experimental stations, well, they were hung up with antennas. These two guys are 400 feet off the ground in New York, stringing antenna wire. No net. You see, the steel workers would go up there and build the towers, but they weren't foolish enough to string antennas. So they would hire these young men to get out there and string antennas, whether it was in New York or whether it was here in the flat plains of Texas. Yes, there were going to be antennas. Well, as I mentioned earlier, this station, Sayville, New York, was a telefunken station. And 2 messages that were decoded from the German telefunken station. One message was to the Germans, telling them where the Lithuania was sailing. Lusitania, that too. And the other one was to the government of Mexico, begging them to attack the United States on the southern border, hoping that it would dissipate it. Well, when all of this was happening, radio was taking records. And where were we getting the records? We were getting the records from England, they were singing about the war that was already in place over there. Now, what happened to all of those experimenters, amateurs that were trying to get into radio? Well, radio was banned, so they got into the service, and they became the Signal Corps. And that's where most of the training for almost all that we know about radio came in World War I. The Signal Corps had a lot more to give than it had to get from the Army. And they trained everybody, including the Women's Radio Corps. The Women's Radio Corps formed in 1916 as kind of a power supply, if you will, for the guys who were building radios. So we know that the next step, of course, was another 4-funnel boat. It was indeed torpedoed by a German submarine, and when it sunk, it was indeed it was the Pearl Harbor of World War I. It's in its own way. But all of that to say that when the war was over, the government still did away with amateur radio stations. They let the commercial radio stations come back on, but the amateurs, well, they weren't welcome. So they came back on as experimental, and the experimental stations weren't licensed for almost 14 months after the end of World War I. So it is not that we didn't have radio in those times, we just had radio in a completely different way. And now, because we're at a point, are we at a point each? Oh, that's much more important than the history. Let's face it, that's much more important. Sure, let's break now and we'll come back later and talk more about how radio was in World War II. And I think it would only be fair. Okay, anybody that needs assistance or anybody that has a transportation device, please go first. We'd hate for you to not get in on the goodies.
We can run over people, so.